Hi, you guys. Sarah, the surrogate here. I'm currently hiding in my car before I go to a birth event. Not a birth, not my birth, but a networking event for birth workers. But I'm by myself. See, no children in the back seat. So I figured I would take this opportunity, this quiet moment, to provide some updates. Nothing like super exciting. I am 35 weeks. I'll be 36 in a few days. And I keep trying to tell myself I'm almost there, but it's so far away. Um, I'm I'm really tired of the feet poking into my gallbladder currently and the head that's in my pelvis. It's really uncomfortable. Oh my gosh, this baby is very rude. She better not fuck things up in there. Um, at the end here, we've had many discussions about how it's not nice when you're renting to leave things a mess when you decide to move out. And since that's hopefully going to happen in the next couple of weeks, we've been having those discussions, me and the bump here. Things that have come up, nothing too exciting. We have our prenatal meeting with our doula this weekend. It's going to be me, my husband, one of our doulas, and maybe both, depends on if both can make it. And then we'll FaceTime the dads. And again, we'll kind of go over like the nitpicky things of like when to call, who's calling who, that chain of events, and what should happen in certain scenarios. And then my husband will get like a little bit of a demonstration on like the comfort measures that we went over in our childbirth class that he couldn't attend because he was watching the kids. So I really recommend, if you are planning to have people in your birth room, whether you're surrogate or anyone, that you do some form of childbirth education, and really, again, to discuss birth etiquette. Because this is a very private and personal moment in your life, even if it's not your baby. Like, this isn't my baby, right? But it's still a very private moment. Like, literally, genitalia is on display, right? You're probably going to be naked or mostly naked. You might be puking and pooping yourself. You got to be comfortable with who's going to be watching you be this really vulnerable person. Even if it's a medicated birth, you could still have this all happening, right? And so I felt like that was really important for me and the intended parents. And I think that that's important really for anybody if you're considering having a bunch of people in your room. But especially people who are probably mostly strangers, and then that gives you time to like really think about what are you comfortable with, like, versus like what the intended parents are expecting, and, making it in birth normal for them, especially if they've never done it, and seen it. It's really important that we normalize birth. And it doesn't even matter if it's a C-section. Again, you got to talk about those things. It doesn't matter if it's a very medicalized birth. It doesn't have to be a natural childbirth for you to need to talk about these things and what to expect and be prepared. Knowledge is power, and having that information up front is a lot easier to handle and process and think about than it is the day of and when you're in labor or going to the hospital for the C-section. Don't have surprises. Bring all those things up in advance. And that's where it's really nice to have a doula, because those doulas can help you think about those things, even if you haven't. I would really love to, in the future, work with more surrogate families, whether it be intended parents or the surrogate themselves, just to help prepare them for this journey throughout the pregnancy and the birth, and how to be that good partner that, and be prepared for the birth, and really being respectful of boundaries that need to be established if they need to be established, and not being offended, leaving your ego at the door, because it's not about the intended parents. I mean, it is. I mean, obviously, because it's them getting a baby, but it's also really about the birth person and what they need in that moment, because this is it, right? Like, this is that pinnacle here of them, bearing all for you, to bring home a baby. So, you got to be respectful and mindful of those things. So anyways, those are the latest bits and pieces. My blood pressure has still been fine, which is good, because if it goes up, I don't get to birth in the birth center. I have to go to the hospital. I'm really trying to avoid that if possible. Would love to birth in the birth center, partly because they discharge you after like 6 to 12 hours. And it's like, I don't need to stay in a hospital and be bugged by a bunch of nurses for 24 hours. I could be at home in my own comfy bed, being bugged by my children. You know, and I don't want to like be, anyways, I don't want to be in the hospital if I don't have to. Obviously, if I have to, that's fine. Like, I would not begrudge medical necessity, but if there's no medical necessity, I don't want to be there. You know, if you do have the options of a birth center or midwife care, I will tell you it's been very different than obstetric care. And I think I've talked about this in previous videos. Just how it's much more holistic. They spend a lot more time, at least with my experience in the birth center here, in the room with me and the parents, really discussing our thoughts, our concerns, whether it be about the pregnancy and really postpartum. That's what it's been nice to watch, is them really ask the parents, like, how are you prepared? What do you need? Do you have a good support system? Have you thought about XYZ that they might not have? You know, really making sure that they're ready to bring home this little person. And that's something I've helped with as well. Being that these are people that I know and they're not total strangers, helped them. Again, we set up the childbirth education, but we also set up a day where they got like newborn care education, because, you know, bringing home a really tiny human being can be super terrifying. I was terrified with my first one. Like, holy crap. And, you know, one of the benefits of not having to give birth and then taking home the baby is that you're not super exhausted and deprived, sleep deprived already. So at least they'll be a little fresher than I would be if I was bringing this baby home. But, otherwise, just making sure that they, as much as you can be, informed and ready for baby. I don't have to do it. I still get a lot of those questions of, am I going to miss the baby? No, I'm not going to miss being stabbed in the gallbladder, in the ribs. I'm not going to miss this little butt that's pushing on my diaphragm so that I can't breathe. I'm not going to miss peeing every 5 minutes. I'm not going to miss any of that. This is not the most fun. It's not like the worst thing in the world, but it's not the most pleasant either. I did have a moment, though, I will share this with you guys, that I didn't really think about, where at this stage in my pregnancies with my children, I didn't find out the gender. So it was like starting to get exciting. Like, I was going to be meeting my baby relatively soon, comparatively speaking. I was getting closer to the end. And so, like, the idea of meeting my baby, finding out what gender they were and what they were going to look like, and figuring out their names, because of course, again, not knowing the gender, you don't necessarily know the name unless you pick a gender neutral name, which we did not, me and my husband. And so this was like that really exciting time for me. And so it kind of occurred to me, like, oh, I don't have that. I don't have that excitement. I get excited about other things, like being able to sleep and not being so big and uncomfortable. But that was like, I don't know, it was just kind of this like, oh, it wasn't like a negative feeling, or it wasn't like I was particularly sad. It was just like, oh, bummer. And I told my husband about it. He was so cute. He was like, yeah, but we get to see if she's gonna look like her dad. And I'm like, yeah, but it's not the same. It's not, and that's okay. I think that's really important to discuss, is as a surrogate, you're allowed to have these gambit of feelings. You're allowed to one moment be okay and the next be like, oh, I think I might be a little sad, and you don't have to be a robot. People kind of think that you're this, that you're not allowed to have feelings or sadness or whatever about this pregnancy because it's not your baby. But yeah, of course you are, because you're a human and you're a fucking hormonal lady, pregnant lady. Of course you can have all these feelings, and that's okay. And it's okay to be a little sad and a little mistful if you're like, oh, I am going to miss being pregnant, especially if you enjoy being pregnant. Or I am going to miss those newborn snuggles because it isn't my baby and I don't get to snuggle the baby, I think that's fine. I don't think we need to totally suppress ourselves and our feelings. The more you, in my opinion, kind of hinder yourself in that capacity, the worse I think your postpartum period could be. Whereas if you're like acknowledging it and sharing it with your support system, the better off you'll be, in my opinion. So that's where we're at. I eventually need to get around things I still need to do. I need to pack my birth bag. I have not done that yet, and I need to get my shit together, y'all. Um, I just ordered a new TENS unit, and if you don't know that, I will just do a video of my birth bag. That's what I'll do. I'll do a bit of video of my birth bag explaining what I'm putting in it, why I'm putting it in there, and like the purpose of those things, like the birth ball, the TENS unit, different clothes, certain snacks, candies, things like that. I'll throw in there and I'll show you guys and kind of give you an idea of what it is I'm planning for. So anyways, have a great rest of the day, you guys. I'm going to eventually mosey my fat ass to this networking event, an adult, and yeah, I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.